What if the person the world believes is its greatest enemy is actually its last chance at survival? And what if love, of all things, is the spark that exposes that lie? Because that is the quiet but devastating question. Episode 4 of The War Between the Land and the Sea plants in our minds from its very first moments, opening not with clarity but with chaos, as Kate narrowly escapes a sniper's bullet, while Salt and Barclay resurface from the ocean quite literally clinging to each other, a visual metaphor that sets the tone for everything that follows. This episode is not really about war declarations or political maneuvering. It's about how narratives are manufactured, weaponized, and sold to the public faster than truth can ever catch up, and the show makes that point brutally clear through the deepfake video of Salt that circulates across the world, falsely depicting her as a genocidal threat and the architect of the massive ocean explosion, a lie so perfectly engineered that it instantly reframes her from diplomat to monster. Even as the world turns against her, we know Salt is barely alive, saved by Barclay in a moment that's both intimate and symbolic, because the way she revives him, through direct physical connection, mirrors how the truth itself survives in this story only through human contact, trust, and proximity, not through institutions or governments. That's exactly why Unit's role in this episode becomes so critical, as Kate, wounded but not removed from command thanks to her phone call with Shirley at the exact moment of the assassination attempt, immediately takes control. Her actions show us that competence and moral clarity still exist inside systems that are otherwise crumbling under political pressure, with politicians eager to see Unit dismantled not because it's ineffective, but because it stands in the way of something far darker. That darkness finally gets a name in this episode: the Institute, a shadowy collective of billionaires whose fear of the Homo Aqua species isn't rooted in evidence or diplomacy, but in the same paranoid logic that has justified countless atrocities throughout history, the belief that eradication is safer than coexistence, and that wealth entitles them to decide who gets to exist. This revelation reframes the entire conflict of the series, shifting it away from a simple humans versus sea people narrative and toward a far more unsettling truth. The real war isn't between species, but between those who want control and those who insist on survival through understanding. Things become even murkier when we learn that the assassination attempt on Kate wasn't ordered by politicians at all, but tied to the Institute's influence, with threads connecting the Prime Minister's friend Keith, Ted, and the would-be assassin. When an American general is brought in to fix the situation and Keith is almost immediately found dead, the episode deliberately presents this not as closure, but as a red flag, raising the possibility that severance and the American military presence may not be a solution to the crisis, but its accelerant. Rather than stabilizing the situation, these forces seem poised to escalate it while hiding behind the language of order and security. While global powers scramble to control the narrative, Salt and Barclay are reduced to fugitives, stripped of protection from both worlds. Barclay's impulsive decision to steal the truck Salt is trapped in and drive it straight back into the ocean feels less like recklessness and more like refusal. Refusal to let systems decide who deserves freedom. But even the ocean, once Salt's sanctuary, is no longer safe. The arrival of Tide at the diplomatic talks confirms that Salt has been disowned by her own people, labeled a traitor for abandoning her kind and choosing Barclay. Tide represents the ideological opposite of Salt: colder, more authoritarian, and far less interested in compromise. He slashes the humans, timeline to 5 years, and demands Salt's immediate return, threatening to turn everything into rust if his conditions aren't met. It's a chilling ultimatum that underscores just how close this world is to total collapse. More devastating, though, is what this means for Salt on a personal level. He reveals that returning to the ocean would condemn her to a hollow existence, swimming alone, stripped of connection, purpose, and identity, a fate that feels worse than death. This confession reframes her relationship with Barclay not as a distraction from duty, but as the last thing anchoring her to herself. That's why their plan to flee to North Wales, a forgotten, in-between place of lakes and waterfalls, feels less like escapism and more like myth-making. Salt's excitement at the idea of becoming the witch of the waterfalls suggests a new identity outside both societies, beyond law, hierarchy, and expectation. The episode leans into fairy tale imagery here, but never loses its political edge, reinforcing the idea that systems fail the moment they stop seeing individuals as people. That tension carries into the almost playful moment where Salt and Barclay steal a phone from a teenager in a tunnel, pretending to be villains. Salt's delight in hissing is brief comic relief, but it also signals her reclaiming agency through performance, a stark contrast to the deadly seriousness of the forces hunting them. When Barclay calls Kirby to reach Barbara, it feels like a lifeline, only for the show to pull the rug out from under them once again. Barbara is already embedded in a military operation, and the call has been monitored, proving once more that intimacy in this world is constantly betrayed by surveillance. At the same time, Kate finally gets confirmation that the video is a deepfake, proving Salt's innocence. This discovery shifts the moral axis back where it belongs and forces Unit into a reactive position. They must now protect Salt and Barclay instead of hunting them. But the episode is careful not to let this feel triumphant. Truth arrives too late to stop the machinery already in motion, and by the time Unit acts, Salt and Barclay are already surrounded by soldiers who believe they're preventing a catastrophe. The final moments bring everything to a head. Salt unleashes her screech, a raw, almost primal act that cuts through the chaos and forces everyone to cover their ears, buying just enough time for escape. In a heartbreakingly simple exchange, Barclay tells her to go, a moment that echoes the earnestness of a teenage musical farewell, yet lands with devastating sincerity here. There's no irony in it, only sacrifice. As Salt dives into the ocean and Barclay is held back by soldiers, shouting that he'll never let her swim alone, the episode ends not with resolution, but with separation. Ultimately, Episode 4 dismantles the idea that Salt is the villain by exposing the machinery behind her vilification, introduces the Institute as the true ideological enemy, deepens the moral rigidity of the Homo Aqua leadership through Tide, and positions Unit, especially Kate, as the last institution still capable of choosing truth over convenience. It leaves us with a haunting question that lingers well beyond the credits. In a world that profits from fear, can truth still matter? And can Salt and Barclay's bonds survive not just distance, but the crushing weight of two civilizations determined to tear them apart?